When I was young, I lived in a quite small town in Queensland. The whole town was surrounded by bush in every direction for hundreds of kilometres. This particular story is about the first time we got drunk. In the winter, the level of water would drop significantly, enough for us to camp in the riverbed. My best mate's parents owned a pub at the time, so we were in charge of getting the drinks for a little camping trip we had planned, so we could finally pop our drunk cherry. The place we had in mind was out near an old indigenous settlement, where a few creepy things have happened to us over time. So we made our way down to the river, down a bank which was low on the side we came in, and really high on the other side. You couldn't see on the other side through all of the trees on the top, and it was kind of unnerving, knowing someone could be up there watching, and you wouldn't know. There are about 7 of us kids in the camp, and our parents have no idea where we are or what we are doing. We have lied and said we were staying at a friend's house. We set up our camp and built a little shelter for all of us to sleep under. We are all set up and start drinking as the sun is setting. Soon it's dark and we are in full swing, mixing drinks and singing songs and throwing stuff in the water, and generally making a whole heap of noise. As we are starting to wind down, one of my friends says he saw something move at the top of the riverbank, on the steep side. We all say that he's full of it and should calm down, but he is adamant there is someone up there, so we all start calling out, "Come out, you pussy," and other such things. To our surprise, a bearded man wearing straggly clothes and no shoes comes out of the tree line and stands on the edge of the bank and just stares at us. We all go silent, waiting for him to do something. But for about 5 minutes, he just stands there, and then he retreats back into the tree line. We all start talking nervously amongst ourselves, but after a while we forget it and continue on with our little party. About an hour later, the guy is back, but he isn't on the bank anymore. He is coming out of the shadows from the other side of the bank and entering our camp. He comes over and stands next to the fire, just joins our group of 15-year-old kids and stands there. We are all officially a bit scared and don't really know what to do, so we just sit there in silence. Eventually one of my friends gets up the courage to speak to him. "G'day mate, how are you? Are you okay?" The guy just stares at my friend and then starts staring at each of us in turn. A little bit of time spent on each of us. My friend tries again. "Hey, are you okay? What's your name?" The man snaps his head back at my friend and stares at him wide-eyed for at least a minute before answering. Without blinking, he says in a raspy whisper, "That's none of your fucking business." And he hisses like a cat. Then this guy just jumps back screaming and staring at the fire like it had just appeared and runs off up the steep bank in record time and into the trees. It was impossible to get up that bank, so we all just stood there, speechless. We decided that it's best if we just stoke up the fire, because it's about a 19k walk in the pitch black back to town, and we weren't confident on that. So stoke the fire we did. We sat up for as long as we could, keeping watch, not really talking. We didn't see him again. My partner and I live in a house his family have owned for generations. Our house has a den and a lounge room. A glass sliding door separates the 2 rooms. The den is about 6 inches lower than the rest of the house, because it was built onto the house only a few years ago. The front door is a glass sliding door also. I keep both doors locked at night, and I draw the blinds on the front door, but never on the door that divides the den and the lounge. About 3 months ago, I decided to watch a movie in the lounge because my partner was home from work and wanted to sleep. He can't sleep with the TV on. It was about 12 AM when I decided to get up and use the bathroom. As I sat up, I looked towards the den and saw a black figure standing on the other side of the glass door. My heart sank in my chest, because after a few seconds, it ducked behind the blinds and vanished. I didn't want to show fear, so I sat back down and tried to pretend I didn't see it. But this unrelenting fear came over me. I had to make a quick dash to my room where I woke my partner to check the house. No one was found. About a week after that, I was woken by my dog at 2 a.m. Usually I put him in his pen way down the backyard in the corner, but I had forgotten to that night. He barked for an hour, so I got up and went outside with my phone as a light to lock him up. While I was walking down to the pen, I noticed a figure in my neighbour's backyard. Thinking it was my neighbour out for a smoke in the dark, I kept heading towards the pen. I got to the pen when my dog started acting very unusual. He was growling and baring his teeth. He had never shown any sign of aggression in the 5 years I've had him until that night. I looked over the fence again, and the figure was crouched down against the fence only 5 meters away from me. I screamed, dropped my poor dog, and took off running for the house. Nothing has happened since. I used to go out pigging with one of my best mates all the time. On this one time, the dogs lose their shit and go to jump off the back of the ute. So we stop and let them loose, and they shoot off like they're on the trail of something, running beside a really tall dam bank, so we think we're onto some pigs. We were standing there and could hear their bells off in the distance, getting further away. Then nothing. The bush was silent, and we started to get a bit unnerved. We felt okay because we were both holding loaded guns, but it was still an uneasy feeling. We stood listening for about 10 to 15 minutes and could hear not a thing. It was almost suffocating. So, my mate started calling his dogs back in. He's calling for a good 15 minutes, and we still hear nothing. So we decide to go looking for them. As we turn to the car, we hear the bells coming from behind us in the tree line, which we thought was strange because it was the opposite direction to which the dogs had left. So we turn towards the tree line, listening, and my mate starts calling out to them to come. And from behind us, the dogs come, without their bells. We just grabbed the dogs and threw them on the ute and bailed. The whole time the bells were jingling, like something had them on. I live in Australia, and wonder if anyone has heard of the Woodajee. I learned of them a few years ago, when relating a story to a Noongar friend of mine. Noongars are the main Aboriginal tribe of Australia's southwest, and in their lore, the Woodajee are mischievous and sometimes violent little people. My encounter happened in Perth, in the suburb of Coolongop, in the 1980s, when I was about 6 years old. My brother and my cousins and I were playing in Black Boy bushland. A black boy is a type of grass tree, native to Australia, and I was hiding from my cousins and brother. I heard a rustling noise to my right and looked over to see a small Aboriginal man about 10 feet away from me. He was about 13 inches tall, with a bushy beard and wearing nothing but a loincloth. I assumed he was hunting, as he had a spear notched to his woomera, which is a spear throwing tool, and I think I might have disturbed him. He looked at me with angry eyes and threw his spear, which sank into my foot before he, the spear, and the hole in my foot vanished.